Hey there. Good morning. How y'all doing? I was one of my friends, Lisa Wolf, put a link in for me to watch a couple of young men talk about clan mothers and rules, or if you will, the law. I approach how I impart what I've learned throughout the course of all my experiences. So thus I share what I've learned. But I've certainly covered how this sort of works. And one of the reasons why I use my childhood, because you come right out of your mother's womb, right? So you know that you come out of a mother or a female, right? So it's much like the conversation I had with this other man who's, I guess he's probably early 60s, maybe. I'm 71, but I don't, time doesn't exist for us. And if you understand how that works with clocks, think of it as your magnet is spinning so fast as a monopole. It's like, imagine what it would be like to experience eternity as it relates to sound compression breakthrough. Okay, which means there isn't any resistance to expand that much energy that eternity represents. So you realize how much fire is therein involved, in which the purity of that fire, which is the purity of that light, is made manifest into creation energy. Okay, so that's what I am. Okay, which means for my spirit, the spirit that is integrated with my soul, it is natural for me in my natural form to be in non-physical form. Okay, which means, and that's measured by what I know about me, by the density that I'm experiencing. Okay, and that's why as a child, I was seeking to be massless, or if you will, non-matter. Because the way the words that I use is called baggage, or if you will, what's held in memory. And what's held in memory is based on what? Density, weight. So when you think of a binary quantum system, and it's called a parallelogram, what is gram? A gram is a metric. What is it a metric of? Well, if you've done some studying or taken a lab class in college and look at gas chromatography, or what's known as mass spectrometry, which is the spectrum, which is the visible light spectrum, or the electromagnetic radiation waveform harmonic, which are mathematical ratios, then you know that there is a mathematician, the highest level of mathematician. And what is the highest level of mathematical, if you will, how do I put this? The energy that is aware of itself with a soul and a spirit is seeking the pathway of least electrical density in order that everything that is alive and living in spirit form is experiencing what you are as eternity, which is eternal fire. Eternal fire is the natural spirit that cleanses our water worlds, since we're mostly water. The blood of a planet is water. Water is a solvent. Okay? So what does it do? It breaks apart things that allows things to flow in the pathway of the least electrical density, which means the least amount of effort. So when you are represented by in spirit as the energy which is the purest of light, which is the purest of love, so that you're distributing more love throughout all of creation, and you're experiencing being eternity. Eternity is in non-physical form. Because the rate of speed in which events are being experienced by the opening and closing of that many events that are being experienced on a horizontal vector, space vector way. Imagine everybody that is on the planet, if you wanted to enumerate those units of consciousness that are experiencing what it is they're experiencing by virtue of the opening and closing of their own circuits. Do you think that everybody that is here on this planet could be experiencing eternity all at once? And the difference between that, between yes and no, is torque speed. Because otherwise, we would all be experiencing eternity all at once. Which means there would be no tape delay. We would be experiencing in what we call feedback in the mirror between what it means to simulate an event and experience an eternal event. Which means if you're experiencing in your heart and soul eternal fire, because that fire is cleansing the purity of your own spirit, then the purity of the spirit is what the soul consciousness is experiencing, the purity of your own free will, which is the pathway that we have chosen to reach and experience purity. And that purity is attained by virtue of the torque speed, which is your magnet, our magnet. So I'm a monopole. So the reason that I choose of my own free will to seek that level of purity in order to spin a magnet as a monopole that fast is by virtue of the fact that when I was a child, I was experiencing others that were not experiencing the purity and the eternity of that much love. And why I used to sign my letters in junior high school, forever I will love you, forever and always. But you realize in a fallen spiritual realm, when a girl in junior high school would ask me, do you tell this to all the girls that you know? And the answer would be yes. And it doesn't include just girls. It includes everything that is alive and living in a natural energy, which means a natural energy world, or if you will, the all creation. That means that you have chosen forever, which is eternity, in order to gift or to be in service forever, gifting away the purest of light so that all creation can experience from which it all began. Because they have the eternal right to experience the right, to experience the path from which it all began, which is spirit form. The spirit form is the purity of the fire that is cleansing the spirit that is in that light, which is the teacher. So the teacher is the spirit that is in the light that is working with the soul. So the soul, in a physical biotech here, is seeking to regain from whence we came, which is the purity of our own heart. So now you can begin to feel through your own heart and your soul what it feels like to experience eternity. That's why I've mentioned this a number of times about you don't have to think about it. So it has nothing to do with the mental field. It's what we feel, the power of experiencing that much energy, creation energy. You can't enumerate love energy by how much energy love is represented by, what that much energy, when it's expanded to become what eternal light is, or eternal unconditional love is, you realize by virtue of experiencing that, you are entitled to experience infinite possibilities. Because that's infinite creative imagination that's on fire. So the purity of your light, or the purity of your water, is based on the purity of your spirit, which is the fire that is in that light that cleanses the purity of the water. That's why they call it wetware. Wetware. We're mostly water. Water worlds. So now we're back to the relationship between fire and water. 1 and 3. That's why there's no coincidence these numbers are sort of popping up. So when I was a child, and I've mentioned this before, about when my own father, for example, when I was a young little boy, probably somewhere around 5 years of age, I suppose it was, about the importance of living in the truth. Because now when we're living in the truth, which is through our heart, which is what love is, the same love that our mother provides for us, because she realizes within her own womb, she's carrying a child from which a soul and a spirit are going to come through her portal into this realm, into a spiritual realm. So it begins with the seed and the seed delivery to the lab. And now the mother is holding that child. So in other words, the child is not in the father. The child is within the mother's womb. So it's like what we talked about the other night with this other gentleman. And I said, you realize that as a little boy, we're not going to allow someone to come into a planet or to our mother's garden and start destroying our own mother's garden. So the seed side, which is the warrior side of protecting the flower, when the male warrior, which is the force side, is fused with the flower side, you become one. Together, forever. So naturally, when you're a monopole or fused in that way, then you realize you've chosen to serve forever. So the amount of fire that is represented by the purity of our light is what heals us, naturally. So it makes it a little different for us that are here, if you will, known as polarity integrators, which is to essentially reestablish or pull all the fragments that are lost as a result of what? Trauma. Loss of fractals as a result of a virus. So when you realize, hey, I'm running a supercomputer, if I got a virus in me, that means I'm losing light as a result of a virus. Well, where's that virus coming from? A mind, a unit of consciousness whose mind is infected. It means that their own mind has a virus. So therefore, its mind that created it or developed it. So that's what corporations are. Corporations suffer a virus. That's right, they do. That's why Karen Ann McDonald put up the documents. Okay. Essentially, I've broken this down before in other videos that I've done. A corporation in and of itself is a fiction, which means it doesn't really exist. Okay? And how do you know that? Because it's not eternity. Whoa. That's right. Because it operates on artificial light, which means it's temporary. And the reason that they don't represent eternity or don't represent love as a law is because they refuse to surrender. Okay? To themselves. In order to become eternal fire. So when they have become eternal fire, they're purified. It is the eternal fire that purifies the spirit, that purifies the light. They refuse to surrender to their own selves and become what love is. And they do so out of fear of surrendering the energy that they use against others. Which means they live in fear of what love is. To be on fire with that much light, which is purified light. That's why they're fallen. Corporations represent fallen races, or if you will, fallen spirits. That's why they weaponize spirit, because their own state of consciousness is weaponized through all their corporations. That's what they are. Corporations are weaponized in and of itself because they do not experience the one. The hottest fire. The hottest fire, which is the spirit of fire, is what cleanses us and what purifies our water and our blood. Since we're mostly water. So when I think of this, when I was a child, when my father would say to me about what it means to, and I've said this many times, what I do to others, I do to me. And this is pure logic. If I'm going to go over and shake a tree, and I'm observing the tree outside where the wind is blowing the leaves, which means that the tree is experiencing itself being a tree, and the tree is not being disturbed by another being that is consciousness, which means the energy that is represented by what they're aware of. I'm not going to go over there and shake that tree to let that tree know, hey, I'm here, right? Now I'm ruffling the bird's feathers, or I'm ruffling the leaves in the trees, so now that the leaves come down. That's called an impact. Okay? Or in the olden days, a footprint. But I can be right where I'm at without going over and touching the tree, and that tree can experience the love that I experience in me, which is eternity, that tree can experience from me without having to go and shake that tree to let that tree know that tree is in the presence of eternal love. Because it's the energy that tree will experience in its presence. So now we're back to what I do to you, I do to me. If I rock your boat, I got no idea what your reaction state is going to be at the opening and closing of a magnetic circuit. For all I know, you could whip out a gun on me. You could come at me and throw a rock at me. You might slap my face. You might yell and scream at me. I have no idea. It depends on how you react to the stimulus, which means now you're aware of what I am. And what did I do? I rocked your boat. So if your boat was in a state of peace, like the calm blue waves of the Pacific, wow, now all of a sudden a typhoon comes up out of nowhere. Wow, blows the mast off. The next thing you know is overturns your boat. Wow, now you're in a state of turbulence. Now you're freaking out. Whoa, man, once I was sailing right along, and now all of a sudden, whoa, turbulent waters. So now my waters are not in a state of peace. So I translated this as a child in which I can use my logic when my father would say the golden rule, right? The golden fire rule of do unto others as you would want them to do unto you. So if I'm not seeking to do you any harm, right, then why would something else seek to do me harm if I am the one that is showing them love? So this is what I couldn't figure out as a child. If I'm trying to love you, why are you trying to harm me? Resistance. They're in resistance mode. They're resistance wanting to experience that much fire, that much purity, that much light that is that pure, because the love is that pure, because that love is called true love, because the energy doesn't lie. You're experiencing the energy of that communication. So the communication of what they experience, which is what love is, it goes on forever, gifting you energy, you're experiencing the gift of free energy, which is the law of the least effort, which is the law of flow. It flows without no effort at all. Doesn't require any force. That doesn't require that. It's like the blade in the chalice. The chalice is now open. Now when I pull my fingers from both hands into the cup, you see a heart. Now the heart opens up. Now the heart is gifting away love. And I do that with the sun almost every day now. Gifting you all unconditional love, gifting you all love, gifting you all love. And when your feet are planted to the rock, then you realize you're connected with the mycelium network and everything there is, because you're choosing to give love to the all creation. Wherever there are spirits, all the elementals, now they're experiencing who we are in spirit and soul form, the form of the energy, which is the form of the communication. So the form of the communication in spiritual form is the flow of that energy, which is the law of least effort to gift it away, which means there is zero resistance to experience eternity. So there is no time. There's only what love is, because love is what's real. And when you're experiencing the purity of that love through your mother and your father, then you are one with your mother and your father as three. A father and a mother, and the first star seed is three. The one, the father of the seed with the mother of creation, joined as one to produce a star seed. So that child, that soul, that spirit is experiencing in them the purity of their mother and father joined as one. That means that the father and the mother are eternity, and the child is experiencing eternal, unconditional love being shared with them with that spirit. That's the purest of light. That's the purest of love. That's as pure as it gets. That's what true love is. True love is unconditional love, and it's unmistakable. Okay? That's what's real. When you know that as a child, then that means that that is the pathway that you have chosen to learn through. And that's your own free will to choose the pathway that you're on. When you're choosing the pathway to be pure, to be purified, you're being purified by the nature of what we are learning, by the pathway that we've chosen to take and learn through, which is why we learn faster, which spins our magnetic drive motor faster by learning faster through the light of the spirit that is in that light, that is integrated with the soul from which that soul is learning, to increase the speed, which is to increase the rate in which that light is being purified. So now you can begin to see why they were killing off the clan mothers and why they were making deals with the chiefs. the seed side. So this is why purification is what is needed, which is an enormous amount of fire. And of course, these corporations, they know that. They realize that consciousness that is represented by corporate consciousness, which is a corpus, because they seek to control what it is they don't love in their own mirror, which is evidenced by the purity of their own light, which is what they experience as a soul and a spirit integrated within that light. So it's a measurement of purity, which is the purity of the truth that they live in, and the truth of the purity in which they communicate that to others, which means pure love, pure unconditional love from a mother and a father is not a liar. It's not a thief. It's not a kidnapper. It doesn't abduct anyone. It doesn't produce a Skynet. It doesn't produce or impose its will on another unit, on another spirit, nor another soul. That's against the law of one. That means that it breaks the law against all of us, which is a broken arrow. That's a virus, because it's not in balance. So their mind is not unbalanced. So their mind is weaponized, and you can see that by their logos, their chevrons. That's right. And when you seek to go to war, and it doesn't matter what you're going to war against, whatever you're going to war against, you're not in a state of peace. Because it means, even with artificial intelligence, integration and augmentation, when you're choosing to use the energy that is represented by what you are in energy, and you're using that energy to go to war in your own mirror, then you're not experiencing peace, which means it's temporary. Which means it's only a matter of time before they go poof. They're gone. At some point, they're going to run out of energy. And now there's nothing left. Bye. That's all their phantom timelines. There's only one line as time is defined. Okay? Because when you start with eternity, everything that is anything less than eternity is temporary. That means that space and events that are occurring are temporary, because now there's the next circuit, closure and opening. What do you want to experience next? That's free will. That's the purity and the gift of becoming what love is. It is an eternal gift. It is an eternal blessing, because you're experiencing eternal love within your own heart and soul that we share and give to others forever. So when you're seeking the pathway to become what that is, it will happen. That's your free will choice to choose that pathway, which is a spiritual pathway, which is a spiritual learning pathway. Have a great day. I love you all. Be good to yourselves. Aloha.